Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. The Boilers are now 2-0 for the second straight season following a 49-0 victory over UConn this weekend. Now, all hands on deck as they prepare to head to South Bend to renew a rivalry with the number 12 Irish. We'll break down the victory up in East Hartford before previewing that trip to Notre Dame here today. First, just want to say thank you to all of you guys who keep listening to the show. I had a ton of fun interacting with you all on Twitter during that UConn game on Saturday. I mean, at times it was more entertaining than the actual game. I appreciate you all. For those who don't already follow the show on Twitter, give us a follow at Boilers Beyond. I'll keep you up to date with everything Purdue there. You can submit questions for the show. We're going to continue growing our audience. We're trying to. Let's keep the good times rolling. Tell a friend about the show. We got a big game on Saturday. Purdue fans will want to give this one a listen anytime before kickoff on Saturday. You know, I know you guys are all Purdue fans. We're not going to waste a ton of time summarizing the Purdue-UConn game. We'll give plenty of takeaways here in a minute, but you know, it was slightly concerning at first when UConn got across the other side of the 50-yard line on their first possession, and then Purdue gets the ball. Jack Plummer sacked twice in a 3-and-out series, and if you're like me, a little bit of a paranoid Purdue fan, you had plenty of ghosts of CBS Sports Network games in the past. Rice, Marshall, Nevada, all of them on CBS Sports Network, all of them awful memories for Purdue, but they were able to buck that trend and finally get a win on that network. 7 straight touchdown drives after that original 3-and-out. Jack Plummer led 5 touchdown drives in a row to take a 35-0 lead into the break. You know, it was only 7-0 after the first quarter. Purdue exploded 4 touchdowns in the second quarter. Coming out of halftime, Purdue put the brakes on a little bit, pulled some of the bigger name starters, Jack Plummer, David Bell, Payne Durham, George Karlaftis. I think all of them did not play in the second half. Aiden O'Connell came in and led 2 touchdown drives before Austin Burton and Mike Alamo each saw a little bit of action late in the game. To wrap it up, the backup defense got a stop deep in their own territory to preserve the shutout. Purdue wins at 49-0, their first shutout since 2011, a game I remember being at, Danny Hope's third season, a win over Southeast Missouri State, and ironically enough, who did Purdue play after that? Notre Dame. They'll be hoping that it goes better this time around than that 2011 night game at Ross-Ade did. Purdue's second straight season with a 2-0 start, though. Obviously, last year's 2-0 start didn't end great. Things were already looking questionable as that Illinois game came to an end. Purdue really did not look good in the second half of that one last year, and they didn't look good again that season. This year, Purdue's looking for better. Purdue hadn't begun 2-0 since 2007. That's the last time they began a season 3-0. Went all the way to 5-0 and number 23 in the AP poll that year. If that can happen again this year, I think Jeff Brom will be the happiest man on the planet. You know, a few takeaways, and by a few, I mean a number, from this UConn game, though. And number one, first and foremost, it is really hard to definitively say much with how bad this UConn program is. This is a program with a lot more questions than answers right now. You know, it was an unbelievable week for UConn. I mean, you start your week on Sunday with Randy Edsall announcing he's done at the end of the year after they lose to Holy Cross in embarrassing fashion. Then Monday, Edsall's out. The quarterback change is happening. They're benching Jack Zergiotis and going with Steven Krajewski. Lou Spanos, interim head coach. He's never been a head coach before. They came out fine. I mean, they moved the chains a couple times early on, but never were any threat to score until late in the game against a bunch of Purdue backups. I know Yanni Karlaftis was in at that point. All sorts of young guys in the game for Purdue by then. UConn's just not good. The defense for UConn just was overmatched. This is a program that, when you look at their future in the FBS, you really have to wonder if it makes sense. I mean, it's an independent program. We really haven't seen a lot of successful independent programs lately. Idaho tried it, and then they became the first program to go from the FBS to the FCS voluntarily. Is that something in the future for UConn? Maybe. I don't know. But you could see clearly that there was no one at that game on Saturday. From what I heard, it was at least half Purdue people. Some East Coast Boilermakers that I know made the trip. But there's just nothing positive going for that program right now. And it showed on the field on Saturday. Despite the level of competition, though, one thing that is becoming tremendously clear is that Purdue has two legitimate All-American candidates. David Bell was out of this world on Saturday. He really got the offense going on that second series. He had a big 26-yard carry on an end-around reverse, took it to the left side of the field. Really good play there. He hasn't done that a ton. Granted, he had the same exact play go for the game-winning touchdown against Nebraska in 2019. It'd be interesting to see if we see a little bit more of that this fall. But he had 6 catches, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns. The first one, a screen pass that he took about 40-some yards. The second one, an unbelievable catch and run from about 60 yards out. And then his third one, just a really nice goal line grab. Unreal. He is so effective. He gets open. He's so graceful in the open field. It's starting to go around. We saw it on Twitter. Some of the goldenblack.com writers saying that this is the best receiver in Purdue history. I think we're there. I can't dispute that and say that someone else is better. I think he's got a long way to go this year. Certainly you want to see this continue, but my prediction from 2 weeks ago that he becomes the all-time leading receiver in Purdue history, in a single season, that is, I don't hate it. I don't know that he'll be able to get the single game record, though. 300 yards is an awful lot. I don't think he can do that, but he may shatter every other record in Purdue single season receiving. And then, Purdue's on the other side, George Karlaftis. He may not have the most impressive statistics through 2 games, and he really doesn't. You look at him with 8 tackles, think a half tackle for loss, forced fumble. The stats are fine, but when you're watching these games and you're rewatching these games, one of my favorite things about rewatching Purdue games every Sunday morning is that you can watch away from the ball more because you already know what's happening. You're not worried about, watching the ball because, especially in a game like this, you already know what's going to happen, and, with UConn, nothing's going to happen. Karlaftis is dominating every offensive lineman that gets lined up across from him, and in this case, it wasn't even close. I felt really, really bad for the UConn right tackle who just got abused all day. He had 3 quarterback hurries and a forced fumble. UConn did recover that forced fumble. That was in a half, and 3 quarterback hurries is pretty low. There were more than 3 passes that were thrown too early because George Karlaftis was in the area. Somehow, no sacks yet on the season. I don't know how. It is absolutely clear that in every snap he's played this year, he has been the best player on the field. He'll have a bigger challenge this week, but I don't know that changes. He is that high level of a defensive end. Purdue hasn't had a player like him in a decade since Ryan Kerrigan came through. And I had my prediction that that Karlaftis would have more than 10 sacks this year. He needs to eventually break through and get one, but he's playing at an incredibly high level. It's reasonable to think that both Bell and Karlaftis can be All-Americans and can be first-round draft picks next year. We're seeing Jack Plummer really play really good football, and that mobility is noticeable. And it's not, completely overt Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray mobility where he's just scrambling all over the place. But he extends plays in a way that separates him from the backup quarterbacks. In the second quarter, he had a really nice play. The blitz coming from his blind side isn't picked up. He spins out to the left, spins into it, and, rolls out, finds Anthrop for a really nice gain along the left side there. And I think it was just a couple plays later, Purdue gets in the end zone. It's something like that where he's just able to spin, take a few steps, collect himself, and throw that shows you why he's Purdue's number one option at quarterback. It's nothing incredibly fancy. It's not like he's going to run for 50, 60 yards in a game. I don't think we'll see that at all. I don't think that's the offense Purdue wants to run. But he's able to extend some plays a little bit. He's able to make a defender miss if he has to. And he's able to throw on the run in a very nice way. We've seen really good play from him so far. And, that's going to be huge for him going forward. The easy part of the schedule is done. We'll see if he can continue. But he is at a very high level right now. 6 touchdowns, no picks. Really nice completion percentage through 2 games. Bell has been phenomenal. Plummer is doing a really nice job. The third part of this offense is Payne Durham. He has been everything you could have asked and more for this number 1 tight end spot. Another touchdown catch in this one. That's 3 on the season already. He had 7 catches in the season opener, another 4 catches for 54 yards in this one, and it could have been more. He was wide open on a little seam route up the middle and was missed by Plummer in the second quarter. Really the only throw Plummer missed badly all day. Durham is a clear number 2 option in the pass game that before the season you could have told me that a receiver would have been number 2 and that Durham would be that third option. You could even told me that, a running back would be getting quite a few targets. Durham's been excellent. He certainly has a knack for the end zone. I think we established that in 2019 when he had a couple of touchdowns I think he had 4 touchdowns on 9 catches or something ridiculous like that. He's been excellent. He is the clear number 2 option in that 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. And when they go into that 12 personnel, we saw it a little bit in Oregon State. Didn't see it as much against UConn because it wasn't needed. But when they put 2 tight ends out there, pretty good chance that ball's going to number 87. We saw, some of that receiver depth was very evident in this one. TJ Sheffield makes his season debut, scores a touchdown. Jackson Anthrop continues to be a valuable asset, a very reliable receiver. Caught both his targets in this one, 27 yards. Milton Wright gets on the board. He has a couple catches after a disappointing season opener. Very impressed by Brock Thompson still. Think that is a transfer that really exemplifies what Purdue is able to do in this transfer portal era. I think you see a guy like that, in a normal, I shouldn't say normal, in an old normal environment where he wouldn't be able to transfer, he's at Marshall and he's putting up some numbers, but no one's seeing it. Now he's in the Big Ten. He's going to put up some numbers. Yeah, I think he is certainly right there in that first receiver off the bench kind of guy. Really good stuff from him, though. Mershawn Rice, kind of the star of fall camp. He got some action, had a nice catch going out of bounds along the sideline, and then an easy touchdown that he was able to waltz into the end zone on. Good stuff from Rice. Purdue was clean in this one, and that is something you cannot put enough importance on. No turnovers again. That's 2 straight games with no turnovers. That is huge. That is huge for Jack Plummer, because the quickest way to cause a quarterback competition is to turn the ball over a lot. That is a very good sign for the Purdue running game, with some running backs who haven't seen tons of action in 2020, really with King DeRue and Dylan Downing. Xander Horvath played a lot last year. We'll get to him later on in the show. Only 6 penalties for 45 yards in this one. I don't remember anything egregious. I remember a wedge block against Purdue that I didn't really know existed, but nothing was too bad on Purdue. Maybe some of it was in garbage time that I don't remember. So, a very clean game for Purdue. That's how it should be against a horrible opponent. But we can only talk about what we saw on Saturday. So, very clean game. The defense was excellent. Anytime you can hold your opponent to under 100 yards passing, that's pretty impressive. Less than 4 yards a carry on the ground for UConn. Again, it's hard to really judge that with how awful their offense is, but we got to see a number of names on defense that we don't normally get to see. So that was nice. Just people played all over the field. It was incredible. Even before the game, I don't know that I would have told you that Purdue would be spending the entire second half with a lot of reserves in, without their stars, and by the end of the game, you would have played 4 different quarterbacks. I'm not going to sit here and break down O'Connell's performance, Burton's performance. At the end of the day, O'Connell looked good, Burton looked fine. It's really hard to judge when you're in a blowout game and you're with a second-string offensive line, a couple of true freshmen on there. It's really hard to judge that. Purdue looked really good in this. I was really impressed with the offense. The defense did what they had to do. My weekly special teams watch, with how bad it was last year, I'm going to start pointing things out every week. It is going to be interesting to monitor whether Jackson Anthrop or TJ Sheffield is the punt returner. We saw Anthrop start the game returning punts, then Sheffield fielded one later. Late in the second half, Marcellus Moore fielded a kickoff. So, good stuff there from the return game. Nothing too explosive, but you don't need anything too explosive. Didn't see much from Jack Ansell. He only punted twice, I believe. Perfect on extra points for Mitchell Finneran. Nice 7-for-7 day for him there. Now on to the concerns, and there are just a couple. Number one, obviously, a lot of you asked in my Twitter mentions about Xander Horvath. Injured in the first quarter, second possession, believe it was the first play. 0-0 game, he goes down, doesn't return. I'm recording this on Monday evening. Earlier today, Jeff Brom announced that Horvath will be out 4 to 8 weeks with a broken fibula. Sounds painful. Thoughts and prayers with Horvath. I believe it was that he was having surgery today. Hopefully that was a successful surgery, and wishing him a speedy recovery. I don't know if I were you that I would plan on seeing him again this year. That's just me. In the Brom era, it seems like injuries tend to take a little bit longer to recover from than they are advertised to be. So what does that leave you? That leaves King Daru and that leaves Dylan Downing. I thought both of them played very well on Saturday. Again, I sound like a broken record here. It's against UConn. It's really hard to take a lot away from that. Horvath is much more battle-tested than both these guys. Horvath is a much more proven receiver. I was asked, how big of a loss is this? It's significant. Purdue went diving in the portal pretty aggressively this offseason for a running back. They didn't get anyone until it may have been too late. There's still nothing about Samson James yet. I am not planning on seeing him in gold and black this year. If he's eligible, great. Purdue could really use him, but I don't anticipate seeing him. So you're down to two running backs that we've seen. We haven't seen Jaquez Cross yet, the true freshman from Arkansas. Will we see some more receivers in the run game? We saw Jackson Anthrop and TJ Sheffield each get a carry. I think that is certainly a viable option. Anything to try to establish the ground game is going to be huge for this team in Horvath's absence, but he will certainly be missed. It's a noteworthy absence that certainly hurts Purdue's chances of winning multiple games throughout the season. And I don't mean multiple games as in winning 2 more games, but you look at his absence, and that really hurts you in games where you need to be a little physical and match some physicality from the opponent. Garrett Miller, doubtful for Saturday. He was hurt in the first half as well. He's the number 2 tight end. We haven't seen much from him this season. Been mostly in a blocking role. So now the question is, will Jack Kravick move into that role? Will Kyle Beladu move into that role? Those two seem the most likely. I don't think Paul Paferi is ready to get those snaps yet, but Purdue has liked to go with that 12 personnel a little bit this year, and certainly someone's going to have to slide into that role, be it Kravick or Beladu. Jamari Brown was banged up in the second half. Sounds like he's going to be all right. That's important. That secondary is another thin position group for Purdue. They're going to need everything they can get there as the season progresses. Still have 10 games left. And then the only actual on-field play that I can notice, I'd like to see some more turnovers from Purdue's defense. Just 2 so far through 2 games. Had the interception by Cam Allen in the opener against Oregon State. You had the strip sack by Jalen Graham in the opener that the Beavers recovered. And then in this one, you had an interception late by Zane Green. You had the strip sack early on in the game by George Karlaftis that was recovered by UConn. So, hard to criticize, but I think you would like to see this defense create more turnovers. That's kind of the point of a more aggressive defense that Jeff Brom brought in Brad Lambert, Mark Hagan, and Ron English to really pull off. All right, now we're into the fun stuff. I know that segment was a little bit longer than I would have liked, but just want to break down that game a little bit. Now we're into the fun stuff. Notre Dame preview time. This is now a game that has Purdue fans believing a little bit. I know it. I know some of you knuckleheads from the Gold and Black message boards listening know it. There's excitement around this that there wasn't a week ago. 2:30 kickoff on NBC. Drew Brees on the call. He's with NBC now. As much as Boiler Nation hates to say it, he will be doing the game on the Notre Dame side. Purdue's anywhere from 7 to 8 point underdogs in this one, and it is a very interesting renewal of this rivalry. Some of you have been Purdue fans for a very long time. Some of you have not. For those who have not, this was a series that was played every year, for almost forever, it felt like. From believe the 1960s to 2014, Purdue and Notre Dame played every single year. Nothing since then. The two teams split off. Notre Dame wanted to go elsewhere with their ACC affiliation. Purdue obliged with that. I don't think they loved it, but, so be it. Very interesting, though. I mean, this is a very historic rivalry. There have been some excellent games in this series over the years. Some huge moments in Purdue history have been in this series. The 2004 Taylor Stubblefield catch, 1997 Vinny Sutherland touchdown on the bubble screen to win it at Ross-Ade, opening up the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis with a win over Notre Dame. Lots of legendary moments for Purdue in this. Notre Dame's off to an interesting start this year. They narrowly squeaked by Florida State despite a late Seminole comeback in week 1. Now, we know Florida State might be bad, as they just lost to Jacksonville State on a Hail Mary this past weekend. And then Notre Dame, and, I guess credit to them for scheduling the Toledo game as their Peacock game, where you could only watch it with a Peacock subscription, because not their best performance. Had to go down with a 2-minute drill late in the game to score the go-ahead touchdown, win the game 32-29. In fairness, Toledo is a good MAC team, probably one of the preseason favorites alongside Ball State in the MAC this year. We had a question from one of our longtime listeners. How much stock do you put into these Notre Dame wins? Are they really worthy of the number 12 ranking in the country? I mean, probably not. That's the downside of these preseason rankings. Texas A&M's number 5 right now after they looked fine in their opener against Kent State and then needed a late touchdown to beat Colorado 10-7. I mean, no, Notre Dame's probably not the 12th best team in the country. Texas A&M certainly isn't the 5th best team, at least from what they've looked like so far. But you have these preseason rankings, and, you're never going to get away from them. Everyone's going to be talking about them. They're for the fans. They're for questions like this. But no, Notre Dame hasn't showed to be the number 12 team in the country. Do they have the potential to be? Maybe. Brian Kelly has really solidified this program in a way that it hasn't been in the better part of 2 decades. The hires of Bob Davie, Tyrone Willingham, and Charlie Weiss were all different kinds of nightmares, each in its own individual way. Brian Kelly's kind of fixed that. They got to that championship game in 2012. Fell off for a little bit. They've been to the playoff twice now, 2018 and then 2020. They're in a good spot as a program. Now, they lost a lot from last year's team. They lost Ian Book, the quarterback. They lost some key pieces from both the offense and the defense. This year, they've got some injury issues early. That offensive line has been such a big part of Kelly rebuilding that program. But now, starting left tackle, true freshman Blake Fisher, he was a one-time Purdue target. He's out. He's not going to play on Saturday. Their backup left tackle went down last week against Toledo. That's not good. You never want to be on your third-string left tackle. I just watched that with the Chicago Bears last night. It's not good. Quarterback, interesting position for them right now. Jack Cohn was excellent against Florida State. Last week, gets his finger banged up. Freshman quarterback Tyler Buckner came off the bench. He played pretty well. He is much more of a running quarterback than Cohn is, but, both these guys are capable. Buckner, very highly touted recruit. And then on the other side of the ball, they've got a few guys hurt on defense as well. I know the linebacker position is thin for them right now. So for the local people, you'll recognize Jack Kaiser from Pioneer High School, who earned if earned is the right word, but was given Mr. Football over David Bell back in 2018. He'll be a starting linebacker for the Irish on Saturday. Their run game has not been what it's supposed to be. They've got a talented pair of running backs in Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree, but without that offensive line firing on all cylinders, that really limits their run game. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We've seen that at Purdue quite a bit. And the final storyline, I guess two more that are fascinating here. Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame defensive coordinator, a rising star in the coaching profession that you probably would have never guessed when he was on Darrell Hazel's staff at Purdue, but he was fantastic as an assistant at Cincinnati, became the defensive coordinator there. Now he's the defensive coordinator in South Bend and is drawing rave reviews from Brian Kelly, although that defense hasn't been great so far. 38 points against Florida State, 29 against Toledo with a lot of explosive plays in there. I know the Fighting Irish Faithful is a very quick to judge group, and they're wanting to see a little more out of Freeman. They're starting to miss Clark Lee a little bit. Finally, it is a great tight end matchup in this one. We talked about Payne Durham in the last segment. Michael Mayer for Notre Dame, very, very good tight end. He's going to be a matchup problem for Purdue in this one. You can already count on it. He is excellent. They've had a good run of tight ends up there, and he is just another installment up there. Some keys to this one before I make a prediction. The turnover margin is huge, and that's why I brought up that one thing that Purdue needs to work on from their first two games is that turnover margin. To win up in South Bend, Purdue has to win the turnover margin. Purdue might have to be +2 in the turnover battle in this one. You can't go up there and, commit turnovers. You can't have fumbles. You can't throw interceptions. If you do, you have to, I guess it's never a good time for an interception, but it can't be deep in your own territory, and it can't be when you have a great scoring opportunity. Both of those are recipes for disaster up there. Purdue has to win this turnover margin. They can do it. They certainly have some athletes on the back end that can pick off some passes. Fumbles are very hard to project, but you never know. This is an area that Purdue is going to have to win if they win this game. They need to keep Jack Plummer upright. Number 2, he's been very good at this so far. Other than that first drive against Connecticut, he wasn't sacked at all. I think he was only sacked twice against Oregon State as well. So, that's not bad, but this is a Notre Dame defensive line that is aggressive. They have 10 sacks through 2 games so far, and they can't keep at that 5-sack-a-game pace. If they get 5 sacks on Saturday, the Irish are going to win this one, and it probably won't be all that close. Purdue's probably not going to have a lot of success on the ground, so that just further, bolsters this point that keeping Plummer upright is huge. Keep that jersey clean. And then finally, Purdue has to be aggressive for 60 minutes. Purdue's preached it all offseason. Jeff Brom has said it over and over again. I agree with it. I've praised it here on the show for quite a while now, but it needs to show up in a big game. You have to make the big plays. You can't play this one afraid. You've got to let the ball fly. Go let David Bell make a play. Go let Payne Durham make a play. Purdue can't just try to move the ball piece by piece, slowly but surely. They're going to have to get some chunk plays. They're going to have to get that Notre Dame defense out of rhythm. And then on the other side of the ball, you have to be aggressive. You have to blitz the passer, especially when Cone is back there, because he's not mobile the way that Buckner is. Purdue has to pressure him. George Karlaftis is licking his chops. He's ready to get that first sack of the season. We'll see how aggressive Purdue is, Saw a nice corner blitz that Corey Trice almost got home on last week. We'll see if we see more of that stuff. I expect to see it. I think they're going to pull out all the stops in this one. I'll be heading up to South Bend for it. This is my first time seeing Purdue in person since the 2019 bucket game. It's my first time to South Bend in a while. I've been up there for a Purdue-Notre Dame game before. It is certainly an interesting environment. I am not a Notre Dame fan, but it'll be a great environment on Saturday. As I said, I think Purdue's going to struggle to run the ball. Even if Horvath was healthy, I think Purdue would be struggling to run the ball in this game. You have to look for ways to extend the run game. You're not going to be successful giving King Daru or Dylan Downing the ball 20 times in this one. You're going to have to find extensions of the run game. Those two are going to have to be involved in quick passes, quick outs out of the backfield, quick curls out of the backfield, slip screens, anything like that. You're going to have short passes on short crossing routes, on quick slants. Purdue's going to have to try to hit these short passes because I really don't think they're going to run the ball all that well. I think they've got the potential to throw the ball well, though. We saw Florida State have some success doing it in that game against Notre Dame. You do have to be cautious, though. Kyle Hamilton is an excellent safety from them. I know Sam, one of our listeners, asked me, who wins that jump ball matchup between Bell and Hamilton. Bell all the way. I know Sam's an Irish fan as well, so, got to throw that one in there. But, he's a legitimate elite safety in college football. Purdue's going to have to be cognizant of him. On the other side, what's the quarterback situation going to look like? How much are we going to see of Buckner in the game on Saturday? Purdue hasn't seen that real dual threat guy yet this year. Only 2 games in, but it's still noteworthy that they haven't seen it yet. Cone is experienced. Cone had experience with beating Purdue, both in 2018 and 2019 when he was at Wisconsin. Now, you have to look at what that's going to look like. What's the breakdown going to be? Cone can certainly shred a defense. So Purdue's going to have to be on their toes at all times there. Purdue's got to stop the run. Notre Dame's not running the ball well so far. They certainly have the pieces too. If Kyron Williams or Chris Tyree gets loose, it could be a long game for Purdue. At the end of the day, Purdue is going to have to play better than they need to win in order to win this game. What do I mean by that? Well, it's no secret. Winning at South Bend takes an extra level of quality play. There's turf now, so they're not going to have the grass, a foot high in this one. You cannot leave the game in the hands of the officials when you go to South Bend. That one has been proven time and time again in history. It is a very, very tough place to win. Purdue has not had much success up there with wins in 2004. And before then, I think the last win up there was in the 70s. It's not been a kind place to Purdue ever. I don't think they're going to get this one. I'm going with Notre Dame 31, Purdue 27. Purdue has the capability to win this game. I think Notre Dame's probably going to have its best performance of the year. I think Game 3 will be good for them. Trust me, I would love to see Purdue win this. I hate picking Notre Dame to win anything. But I'm going to go with 31-27. Purdue covers the spread, but does not pull the outright upset. Now, as always, I like to answer some of your questions. You can always tweet me at BoilersBeyond. Send me your questions. And, one thought I had is last week I'm sitting in my kitchen just making dinner with the Jeff Brom show on the radio. And the first caller of the day on this show went on a 2 or 3 minute tirade, just ripping Jeff Brom apart for a delay of game penalty against Oregon State. In fact, he told Jeff Brom that he's too good of a coach to let that happen. So Thank you guys for not going so hard on me when I make a mistake on the podcast. I appreciate that. But, lots of questions about the Notre Dame matchup. Lots of you know me personally and know that I am not a Notre Dame fan. I have been asked that in the replies. No, I grew up an hour away from South Bend. I grew up with South Bend TV. I cannot stand the Irish. I grew up with way too many people who wore their navy and gold during the fall and then put on their cream and crimson for the winter. I can't stand it. I am not a Notre Dame fan whatsoever. Two big questions, though. Number one, where does Purdue rank in the West so far? This was a really good question because I assume most of you are following the Big Ten landscape at least. Certainly there are interesting things going on in the East with Ohio State taking a loss already. But out West, Iowa is 2-0 with two very impressive wins. They're number one. That's not without caution. Only like 173 total yards for them in this win over Iowa State. They had two pick sixes that helped them against Indiana. I don't know that, two ranked wins are necessarily the best way to look at this team, but those are two very big wins. They're number one. You got to put Wisconsin at 2. They had a million chances to beat Penn State. They never cashed in. But I don't think there is another team in the West that would have put themselves in that type of chance to beat Penn State, if that makes sense. After that, it's wide open. Nebraska is, bounced back a little bit. They're 2-1. They did lose to Illinois. They look horrible. Just lost by 28 at Virginia this week. Year one of Brett Bielema is probably not all it was hoping to be after that Nebraska win in week 1, or week 0, I guess. Minnesota narrowly escaping from Miami, Ohio this past week. That is a much different team without Muhammad Ibrahim. Losing him for the season is really sad. He was looking so good against Ohio State before he was hurt. But he's done for the year, and that team suddenly looks very vulnerable. And then Northwestern, really looked bad in their season opening loss to Michigan State. Got by the Sycamores of Indiana State 24-6 over the weekend. I'm going to reserve judgment there. Fitz tends to get his teams playing well the later into the season it goes. But for right now, I think Purdue has a claim to be number 3 in the West. I think that is realistic right now. I really do. The preseason pundits, almost everyone had Purdue at number 6. I think it's pretty reasonable to think that Purdue could finish in number 3 or number 4. Now, there's a lot of football left to play. We'll see what they do without Horvath. That injury certainly hurts, but getting those Illinois and Minnesota games at home is going to be very key because at the end of the day, you're competing against those division opponents. You get them at home, see what you can do. If you can pick up those wins early, that really that really helps, and it really hurts the other teams trying to climb you in the standings. And then finally, what's going on with Abdur-Rahman Yassin? Very fair question. Yassin was a pretty high-profile recruit, 4-star receiver coming out of Michigan who decommitted from Northwestern very late in his recruitment process to come to Purdue. He appeared in a game or two last year. I know he saw action and saw a target against Northwestern last year. I'm not really sure. He was unavailable for the week 1 game against Oregon State. Jeff Brom said that. I don't know that he really indicated why. Didn't see him at all in this week's game against UConn. I don't know. It's tough because this is such a deep receiving core. The guys he's competing against to just get on the field, because I think David Bell is your clear number 1 receiver. I think Milton Wright still is your number 2. Obviously, Anthrop and Sheffield are the slot guys, so they're in a bit of a different category. But competing to get snaps, you've got Brock Thompson, you have Mershawn Rice, you have Abdur-Rahman Yassin, you have Colin Sullivan, you have Dion Burks, true freshman who saw some action this week. So it's tough. And, that doesn't even mention how important the tight end position is in this offense. So I don't think it's as much about Yassin as much as it is that this receiving core is really deep. But, certainly, anytime you have a 4-star recruit, you want to see something out of him. And, with how deep this receiving core is, I just don't know that we will this year. That's all I have for this week, folks. Thank you for joining me here today. Please, if you can, spread the word. Tell a friend. We want to grow this audience. The more the merrier. It's setting up to be a fun season. We're already having fun here. I'm having a blast recording these episodes, talking to you guys on Twitter. Please give me a follow if you don't already, at Boilers Beyond. Tons of content there. That's where you can shoot us the questions to be read on the air next week. Great weekend of football coming up. I'm sure some of you will be joining me in South Bend. I'll see you guys up there wearing black and gold. Next week, we will recap the Shillelagh game, and we will talk Illinois with a special guest from Illini Nation as Purdue begins Big Ten play. See you all next week.